Hey everyone, welcome back to Understanding AI. Today, we're going to tackle a huge topic, the AI revolution. But we're not going to get lost in the hype or the jargon. Instead, we're going to peel back the layers, literally. We're breaking it all down into a simple 5-layer supply chain to see how this whole thing actually works and, maybe more importantly, who's really in charge.
Right now, we are smack in the middle of a global gold rush. I mean, the amount of money pouring into AI is just mind-boggling. This isn't just another tech fad. Investors are betting the farm on this, treating it like the next bedrock of our entire economy. And as this quote says, it is an all-or-nothing trillion-dollar bet. So, with all this cash and all this hype flying around, you gotta ask, what are we actually building here? You know, under all the cool chatbots and image generators, there's this massive, complicated industrial machine being put together, piece by piece. And that's exactly what we're going to get into today.
All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to walk through the 5 layers of the AI supply chain. We'll start with silicon and power, move to cloud and data, then models and apps, and finally, we'll talk about the lords of the stack, the ones really running the show.
Okay, let's dive in. The 5 layers. I want you to think about this like a pyramid. To get to the cool stuff at the top, you have to build a massive, expensive foundation first. So that's where we'll start, from the ground up.
So here are the 5 layers, the building blocks of AI. It all kicks off with the actual physical hardware. Then, that hardware needs a home, which is the cloud infrastructure. That's where it crunches all the training data. Now that data, it's basically the food for the foundation models. You can think of them as the AI's brain. And finally, those brains power the AI applications we interact with every day. The most important thing to get here is that you can't have one layer without the one right underneath it. It's a stack for a reason.
All right, let's get into it. Layer 1, silicon and power. This is the absolute foundation. We're talking about real, tangible stuff here. The specialized computer chips and the unbelievable amount of electricity it takes to run them.
And when it comes to these chips, well, it's pretty much a one-company show, Nvidia. Just look at this. They've got something like 90% of the market for these super specialized GPUs that are essential for training AI. Let's be clear. Without Nvidia's chips, the AI boom we're seeing today, it just doesn't exist.
So, where do all these powerful chips go? They live in these gigantic data centers. And the money being spent to build these places, it's absolutely insane. I mean, Microsoft is dropping $4 billion on just one data center complex. $4 billion. We're not just talking about racking up a few servers here. This is a monumental construction project that needs a ton of power.
Okay, so we've got our foundation. Now let's move up the stack to layer 2, cloud and data. Think of this as the factory floor of AI. We've built the building, now we need to set up the assembly line and bring in the raw materials.
So, who owns these digital factories? Well, no surprise, it's the usual suspects: Amazon, Microsoft, Google. They're the ones building these giant cloud platforms and basically controlling who gets to use all that computing power. But a factory, even a digital one, is worthless without raw materials. And for AI, the raw material is data. And we're talking about unimaginable amounts of it. Trillions of words, billions of images, all sucked up from the internet.
But here's the twist. All that raw data, it's actually not enough on its own. It's messy. It needs to be cleaned up, refined. And who does that? People. That's right. Human intelligence is what makes artificial intelligence smart. There are literally millions of people all over the world whose job it is to label images, to fix text, to basically teach these AIs about the complexities of our world.
And this is where things get complicated. There are 2 very different sides to this story. On one hand, this work can be a real opportunity, a lifeline for people who need flexible jobs. But on the other hand, the reality can be pretty grim. We're often talking about very low-paid, repetitive tasks on platforms that many have started calling digital sweatshops. It raises some really tough questions about what this new economy looks like for the people powering it.
Okay, let's keep climbing. We're moving up to layers 3 and 4, which is where a lot of the magic you actually see happens. This is about the brains and the product. We're talking about the foundation models themselves and then all the cool applications they make possible.
So when we talk about the models themselves, the pace is just breakneck. Seriously, you blink and there's a new, more powerful model out there that completely changes the game. It feels like every few months we get another huge leap forward. The race to build the smartest AI is happening at a truly unbelievable speed.
And it's not just about making the same models bigger and faster. The very nature of these models is changing. We're moving into an era of what are called reasoning models. Now, what does that mean? It means the AI doesn't just spit out an answer. It actually shows you its thinking, its step-by-step process. This is a huge deal because it makes them way more trustworthy for complicated problems, and it's easier for us to figure out where they messed up.
So, you've got these incredible AI brains. Now what? Well, that brings us to layer 4, the applications. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's how AI stops being a thing in a data center and starts changing our world. We're talking about huge stuff here, like discovering new drugs by predicting the shapes of proteins, or making shipping routes way more efficient to save fuel. It's helping manage entire power grids and design better batteries. AI apps are already here, and they're digging deep into the foundation of our economy.
Okay, so we've walked through all 5 layers, from the bare metal all the way up to the apps. Now it's time to zoom out and ask the big question. When you look at this whole stack, this entire supply chain, who's actually in control? Who are the new lords of the stack?
Well, for starters, you just have to follow the money, and the money tells a very clear story. Look at this. Of all the private investment in AI, something like $109 billion went to U.S. companies. That is an enormous piece of the pie. Forget a normal race. This is a full-blown capital arms race. And right now, it is not even close. And where is all that money concentrated? You guessed it, a handful of big tech giants. They have this perfect storm of advantages that's almost impossible to compete with. First, they have the data, more than anyone else on the planet. Second, they have the capital, the deep, deep pockets needed to buy all those chips and build those data centers. And finally, they have the distribution. They own the app stores, the cloud services, the operating systems. They can push their AI out to millions of people overnight. And folks, this right here is probably the single most important takeaway. We love the story of the small startup in a garage that disrupts the entire world, but with AI, that might not be the story this time. The cost of entry is just so high, the scale you need is so massive, that AI might end up being what's called a sustaining innovation. Instead of disrupting the giants, it could be the very thing that makes them stronger and more powerful than ever before.
So that leaves us with a really big question to chew on. If the building blocks of this entire revolution, the chips, the cloud, the data, are already owned by a tiny club of companies, what does that mean for everyone else? Is the game already over before it's even really begun? Is the future of AI already in the hands of the lords of the stack? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on Understanding AI.